Title. She said, look at me acting single. I told her, congrats, you're single. Then she saw me with. I never thought a simple night out could unravel everything we had. My name is Alex, and my wife Samantha and I had been together for 10 years. We had gone through ups and downs, but I had always believed in second chances, in holding on when things got rough. It all started on a Friday evening. Samantha walked into the room, wearing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, and said with a playful smirk, look at me acting single. She twirled slightly, flaunting a confidence that had once drawn me in, but now felt like a challenge. I paused, studied her, and replied calmly, congrats, you're single. Her smile faltered. She hadn't expected the words to land with such finality. I wasn't angry. I wasn't pleading. I was clear, decisive, and done pretending that things could go back to what they were. Samantha laughed nervously, brushing it off. Alex, come on. It's just a joke. I shook my head, keeping my tone neutral. No, it's not a joke. Actions speak louder than words, and this behavior tells me everything I need to know. For years, I had tried to be patient, to hold us together through neglect, missed opportunities, and emotional distance. But tonight, her declaration of freedom was the final confirmation. Our marriage wasn't broken, it was over. And I finally saw it clearly. I left the house that night, not in anger, but in deliberate calm. I didn't go back to fight or beg. I went to reclaim my dignity, to step into a world where I controlled my own narrative. As I walked down the streets, I reflected on the years we shared. The laughter, the arguments, the stolen moments of joy, and realized that love alone cannot sustain a marriage if respect and commitment fade. By the time I reached the restaurant, I had a plan. Not for revenge, not for humiliation, but for a demonstration of clarity. Samantha had tested the limits, and I intended to respond in a way that was unmistakable. I was about to show her what happens when words are backed by action, and what it means to truly move on. As I sat at the restaurant, I made sure everything was perfectly ordinary, blending into the crowd. I wasn't there to be noticed, but I knew that when the right moment came, Samantha would see everything she needed to. My plan wasn't cruel. It was clarity in motion, a demonstration of what her choices had brought upon our lives. Within an hour, Samantha arrived, radiant and playful, expecting the attention she was used to. She scanned the restaurant, searching, probably hoping to spot me first, to gauge whether I had reacted with anger or despair. But what she didn't expect was the company I had chosen. Jessica, a close friend who had been my support through the chaos, someone who understood the depths of my patience and the boundaries of my respect. Samantha froze the moment her eyes met ours. Her confident posture wavered, the playful smirk vanished. Alex, what? She stammered, clearly struggling to process the scene before her. I kept my composure. Calm, steady, unwavering. You're single now, Samantha. I'm showing you what that really looks like. She opened her mouth, probably ready to protest, explain, or deflect, but I didn't give her space. I let the silence speak for itself. Years of neglect, emotional distance, and reckless testing of boundaries had led to this moment. And now, the message was undeniable. I had moved on. I was no longer tethered to a marriage that had lost its foundation. Throughout the evening, I noticed her glances, hesitant, uncertain, almost fearful. She had assumed that her theatrics, her declaration of independence, would provoke jealousy or panic. Instead, it had revealed my strength, my clarity, and the life I was building outside the constraints of a marriage that no longer served either of us. By the end of the night, Samantha left, silent, introspective, perhaps finally grasping the consequences of her actions. I remained confident and composed, enjoying the company of someone who respected me and shared my perspective on loyalty, dignity, and respect. That evening marked a turning point, not just for her realization, but for my own awakening. I was no longer reacting to her whims. I was living my life on my own terms, and the difference was palpable, immediate, and irreversible. The days that followed were a mix of reflection and realignment. Samantha avoided me, probably hoping the embarrassment of that night would fade. But I didn't retreat. I continued my life with deliberate calm, demonstrating through actions, not words, that I had moved on. Our home became a place of clarity, I organized my schedule, spent quality time with my children, and nurtured relationships that mattered. While Samantha grappled with the reality she had created, the playful, careless woman who once acted single now had to confront a life where her choices bore consequences. I kept communication minimal but direct. Any attempt from her to manipulate or guilt me was met with composure. I didn't respond emotionally. I responded logically. Samantha, I am focused on what matters, our children and our dignity. That life we had is over, and that's final. Meanwhile, I began to rebuild my social life in ways that honored my self-respect. Jessica and I became close friends, companions in navigating the aftermath, a presence of stability and understanding. Her support was unwavering, her respect for boundaries clear. Through her, I realized how much I had tolerated in the past, and how easy it was to reclaim control when clarity replaced fear and hesitation. Weeks later, I received word that Samantha had started dating again, flaunting her freedom as if nothing had changed. I didn't react. I smiled quietly, knowing the truth was already evident. Actions had consequences, and the woman who once mocked commitment now faced the reality of its absence in my life. Our children remained my focus, and in their laughter and trust, I found the reassurance I needed. I wasn't seeking revenge, nor did I need validation. The clarity of my actions, the decisiveness in my responses, and the emotional boundaries I maintained had already spoken volumes. That night, as I put the kids to bed, I reflected on the lessons learned. Marriage is built on respect, honesty, and shared responsibility. When one side abandons these pillars, words alone cannot repair the damage. Samantha's performance, her claim of independence, had revealed the fragility of a life that had lost its foundation. And my response, calm, controlled, unwavering, ensured that while the marriage ended, my dignity, my children, and my future remained intact. In the end, the lesson was clear. Love alone cannot sustain a life of pretense. When boundaries are crossed and respect ignored, clarity and action define the outcome. Samantha learned it the hard way. I lived it, and my life moved forward, stronger and more purposeful than ever.